Hello everyone, welcome to another lesson on IELTS writing tips. In this lesson, we are going to talk about complex sentences. In the previous lessons, we generally very extensively went over transition words and linking phrases. So this we covered extensively in the past few lessons. And in this one, we are going to talk about complex sentences. And complex sentences are the ones that you've seen them around, that you're very familiar. And we're just going to review them quickly. So grammatically, you won't make a mistake. And that's the entire purpose for this one. So complex sentences are formed of dependent and independent clauses. So what are the differences between these different clauses? So independent clause means that it is complete in the meaning. The meaning of independent clause is complete. When you put it together and present it as a sentence, it's a complete sentence. It might be a little bit short, but in the meaning, it is complete. However, on the other side, the dependent clause is incomplete. Means that it by itself it doesn't convey the entire message. It's not finished. Essentially, it's not a finished thought. So, what is an example of an independent clause is, for example, the weather was cold. And what is an example of dependent clause is, for example, although the weather was cold. So you can see that this is not a finished thought, and the sentence on the right is finished. So let me not complete, and here on the right it is complete. And we want to use these complex sentences in our writing because it makes the writing more exciting, more interesting. And for example, you can write a sentence, write an essay like this. The weather was cold, full stop. However, we went hiking. So you can tell that this is very choppy. There are two small sentences here, and each one is like few words, 4 or 5 words, and doesn't make an interesting. If all of your writing is like this, it doesn't make an interesting sentences. It's better to put these small thoughts together and make a bigger sentence that conveys the exact same meaning, but it's in one sentence. It's a complex sentence rather than two simple sentences. So what is, if we want to put it together, we can either make the dependent clause first and then independent clause, or vice versa. Both of them works. And let me show you the example of both, and then it becomes very clear. So you can say we went hiking, and this is a complete sentence. And then here you can say, even though the weather was cold. So because you brought the independent, the complete one first, you don't need any comma or anything to separate the independent from the dependent, because this even though here it sort of acts as a comma in a sense. However, if you write it the other way, like for example, if you write although the weather was cold, then you need a comma here. We went hiking. So this comma here is very important, and you want to pay attention to this. Sorry, let me read it again. To this phrase here, to this clause here. So although the weather was cold is dependent, obviously. If you write this or say this to someone, although the weather was cold, they're expecting to this sentence to finish. It's not a finished thought. So this is obviously a dependent one, dependent clause. And because it's a dependent clause, you need to separate it from the independent clause with a comma right here. And that's the main difference that you want to pay attention. If you make your dependent clause or write your dependent clause at the beginning of a sentence, at the end of it, at the end of your clause, you need to put a comma right here and then continue on with the sentence, bring the independent clause and finish your sentence. And that's the entire formula. So if I want to put it a formula, so you can say independent and then plus your conjunction or the connecting words. So connecting words, let's put it this way. These are words such as and, but, because, these kind of words, plus your dependent clause. And on the other side, you have your dependent clause, which starts, for example, with your connecting words. I'm not going to put that in the formula, plus this comma, plus your independent. So this comma is very important. If you miss it, essentially you'll lose points. So this is important, the comma, to practice and get it right in your writing. I'm just gonna finish it with another example, and we call it the lesson there. So you can say, because, well, let me change the color to our example color. Thing was this one. Because she studied hard, comma, she received a good grade. Or you can say she received the good grade or a good grade because she studied hard. So this word because here sort of acts as a comma in a sense. So you don't need to have a comma here in the second example. So they're exactly the same meaning. It's essentially where you want to put your focus on when you, for example, mention because she studied hard. You are putting the emphasis, because it's at the beginning of a sentence, you are putting the emphasis at the beginning of a sentence generally. So you're putting more emphasis on studying hard. Rather than the second example, you're putting more emphasis on the person that got a good grade. And that's essentially the biggest difference. In terms of meaning, there's no difference in these two examples. So just pay attention to this comma right here and this sort of connecting word. There are other examples of these different sort of conjunction words that in the future lessons We are going to go through them to essentially mastering making complex sentences. And that's it. That's the lesson. Thank you so much. See you guys in the next lesson. Cheers.